guys, Vince from Team Crit coming at you with another video. This one will be a nice discussion on legacy support in Vanguard, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether I like it or not. So let's start by discussing what legacy support really is. Well, legacy support is when they give support to an older deck or an older sub-clan and try to make it better now. So for example, Eradicators, who were first brought in Trial Deck 12, or Trial Deck 9, got really their full-fledged support in BT10. That's when Descendant came out. That's when they started really hammering hard that they were a really good deck. And in GBT12, that's about, let's see, 5, give or take 15, 17 sets down the road, they're still getting support. Now, it hasn't been consistent, it's been splotchy for Eradicators, but for people who are fans of the clan like myself, because it's able to bring old decks back into the swing of things, like the Sweep Command build was brought back with Impede Dragon. There's been a ton of stuff around that, been topping here or there. It's really cool to see old decks get these power buffs and be able to be brought back or played again, or more relevant, or even better, you have more chances of winning instead of clinging onto an old deck. Tons of decks have gotten legacy support in the past. There's Silver Thorns, of course, who were really pushed hard in BT13, and just in the Rummy Labyrinth set got a whole new slew of support where Luquier got reprinted as a Stride break. They got the new Luquier Stride and a couple Silverthorn commons and rares. The critical trigger that makes the deck wonderfully great. You can just throw it back in and get free cards out of your soul. Now, I keep talking about how I think Eradicators have been doing their legacy support correctly, but they also have had their fair share of not so good support, like when they tried to build Tempest Bolt up as the new boss monster with the grade 2 that can't be retired by your own abilities, and the critical trigger that when retired by your own ability lets you check top 3. Those weren't so good, but it was certainly interesting that they let you have a varied playstyle where you could play, the Gauntlet Buster version, or the Descendant version, or the Tempest Bolt version. It's really interesting that there's tons of cards they want you to play. Otherwise, the Stride for Gauntlet Buster really dropped the ball when it came to really pushing Eradicators to where I feel like they wanted it to be with that, because not a good second Stride considering how powerful Conquest Dragon was at that point in time, even still is to this day, is still a 2 of in Eradicator Stride zones. Maybe even a 4 of. So, when is legacy support done poorly? I'd probably say with Celestials, they really got the short end of the stick when it comes to the support that they got, because back in the day, Celestials were all about like the power gain, and that's cool, but it's not as impressive as Angel Feather now, which is really the problem. With legacy support, you have to make a deck as good, if not better, than some of its current incarnations. Like with Eradicators, like I said, the Sweep Command build it's gimmicky, but it still works. Its core components, it's a deck that works. It's maybe not as good as Vanquisher, just because of Vanquisher's pure power output, with Thunderstrike now and VMAX being able to hit, and soon V-Buster coming out here to the Americas, so it's really going to be hard for Eradicators to beat that unless Descendant gets like a Break Stride or a new Stride unit that's really powerful. It's really helpful. But it doesn't really push them into super relevancy. Now, Silverthorns aren't as good as Harry, just because Harry calls a lot faster. Silverthorns is more power-based. They do have a lot of good pressure, just because of the lack of GB, so there's always a surprise factor. You can pull out game wins from that, simply just because if your opponent isn't at GB yet, if you're in early game, like using the grade 2 on hit, you get to call something. It really gives you a lot of power over your opponent in the earlier stages of the game, and that's the same thing goes for Eradicators. They have more of that early game control over the board with like Cho-Oh, Cho-Jun, the Interceptor that retires a unit that isn't attacking or boosting. Of course, you can even play 10k vanillas to cover your weak spots in case you don't ride a ride target, or if you don't have a good ride target. Otherwise, legacy support itself is a really cool idea that I think is nice, that old decks aren't just left in the past and completely forgotten, because it's nice to have variation. There are sometimes in other games, maybe something like Yu-Gi-Oh!, where a deck will be printed and never supported again. Legacy support in Vanguard, is it good? Well, I personally think it's really good to keep old decks into the flow of things, like I said, Eradicator Silverthorns. Tetra Drive is one of my other ones. it's an example of legacy support done really, really well, because you still play the original Tetra, but a lot of it is the new Blue Wave stuff. Just with a Stride, a Grade 3, and a Grade 2, with 3 cards, they made Tetra like eons better than it even was with the Break Ride combo, especially now that people are putting it in Thavis decks. It'll be a Thavis Tetra deck. It's really interesting how people go about using legacy support sometimes, but I feel like Tetra, the Tetra Blue Wave stuff, was done perfectly. Maelstrom support, it's been iffy here or there. It's definitely got good usages, like when they turn Maelstrom into a Break Ride, and then you had the whole Glory Break Ride combo. Your opponent literally can't guard from their hand. With G guards, it's not as powerful, but it can still be a game ender if you're really just not prepared for it. Plus, Aqua Force's consistent pressure throughout the game really makes it harder to keep those G guards guaranteed in your hand. There are cases where legacy support isn't done right. Like I said, with Celestials, I think it really just dropped the ball, considering they don't have any way of really controlling the damage zone as much as you think. I mean, there are the grade 1s that you can put stuff into the damage, but of course there's the grade 2 Candlelight Celestial that is an 8k, so it's not as good. But the Stride, Michael, when it originally came out, was just the Stride. It was really useful. It helped the deck a little bit, but Gavrail still, with just the pure defensive power, like with how Shamsiel used to be, it really does help you control the state of the board a lot better. Now, of course, there are cases where legacy support is beyond good for a deck, and it catapults it to the forefront. For example, Starvaders, Chaos Breaker, and specifically, with a few new cards like the Stride Chaos Universe and the Grade 1 Zinc, I believe is her name, Pushing the Soul, Countercharge 2, Soul Charge 2, is really just beyond powerful for that deck. Because Chaos Universe single-handedly brings that card into meta relevancy, in my opinion, and it's just that one card. Sometimes that's all a deck needs, is just 1 or 2 cards. It's okay for legacy support, printing 1 or 2 cards here, because it helps keep the game varied. Maybe not everybody wants to play some type of one clan. You can play the sub-clans, you can do other stuff. When legacy support is done right, I feel like it's really, really good. Sometimes they try to make a mountain out of a molehill, like with Death Army, if anybody remembers, back when that deck got support. It really just wasn't good at all. But I'm okay with legacy. If it's a card here, I'm okay with it. If it's here or there, a card, a couple cards, a grade 2, a Stride, a new trigger even that's just really good, I'm okay with it. It doesn't feel like it's watering anything down. If anything, it just makes the game feel more diverse, and that's always something that's really, really nice, because it's getting to the point where a lot of decks can win. It's just, you still see consistently those decks like Royal Paladin, Grand Blue, Meteor Chronicle, Link Joker even, for the most extent here in the Americas, are decks that consistently top. But as you can see, once Impede Dragon came out, a card like Sweep Dragon, which you only thought to ever use on your turn, his Limit Break is now one of the best defensive things Narukami has. The fact that the single G-Guard, it wasn't even legacy support technically, they weren't supporting Eradicators directly, but that card pushed Eradicators to the point where that deck topped, is really cool, because I played when Eradicators were like really good, and Descendant had to be limited to 2 per deck, because that's just how good the deck naturally was. So, let me know what you guys think about legacy support. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Like I said, I think it's really cool. I like it in the game. You can play decks way back, like Magus even gets random support sometimes, but... So yeah, let me know what you guys think. When do you think it's done right? When do you think it's done wrong? And what is your opinion on it overall? And what deck would you like to see get legacy support in the future? Me personally, I would like to see some of the more weird Aqua Force cards get it, like last card Revan could always get some more support, like something new, because he's never really fleshed out. It went from Transcore Revan to Transcore Tetra, which was just eons better than a lot of decks we had back in that day. Otherwise, remember to rate, favorite, comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Later.